In this video, I will discuss audience, style, purpose, and tone in regards to writing. We'll begin by looking at audience and how to identify our readers, then style, which includes using an appropriate style for your audience and purpose, followed by purpose, which is to identify why you are writing something, and then tone, which includes using an appropriate tone for your purpose and your audience. To begin with, we'll discuss audience, which refers to your readers. It's important to always be able to identify as best you can your audience. You want to make sure you know your audience and you write specifically for that audience. Some questions to ask to help identify your audience include: what audience do you want to reach? What are their expectations from you? What is your relationship with your audience, and how does that affect your tone? What is your audience's background, their education and life experiences? What are their interests? What motivates them? Do they have any political attitudes or interests that may affect the way they read your writing? Is there any demographic information that you should keep in mind, such as race, gender, sexual orientation, religious beliefs, or economic status? What does your audience already know or believe about your topic? What do you need to tell them? What kinds of response do you want from your audience? Do you want them to believe something, to accept what you say, or something else? And how can you best appeal to your audience? What kind of information will they find interesting or convincing? And are there any styles of writing that will appeal to them specifically? If you write in a way that an audience is familiar with and will accept, they're much more likely to pay attention to what you're trying to say and be convinced that what you are trying to say is believable. That brings us to style. Keep in mind that there are many different styles in writing, and style refers to the way writing is dressed up or down to fit the specific context, purpose, or audience. We want to consider word choice, sentence fluency, and the writer's voice, which all contribute to the style of a piece of writing. For our course and most college courses, we want to use an academic style as opposed to a conversational style. So you don't, for example, want to write the way you speak with family and friends in an academic or formal paper. Your audience for an academic setting is knowledgeable and professional. The subject matter is serious, and typically with an academic style, we write in the third person point of view, which includes using pronouns such as she, he, it, they, them, as opposed to first person pronouns like I and me. And we want to use a professional and impersonal vocabulary. However, you always have to keep in mind the purpose why you're writing something. For example, our first essay is to write a personal statement. So you need to use a first person point of view because it will sound a little bit weird if you are using third person pronouns to talk about yourself in a personal statement. So again, you always want to keep in mind the purpose of an assignment or a piece of writing. A little bit more about academic style. When we're writing in this style, typically we write out contractions. So instead of saying something like don't, we would write out do not. We avoid using colloquial expressions or non-standard forms of a language. We want to write out numbers under 100. So instead of writing the number, we write the word. We use conventional grammar and punctuation, and we use formal documentation. For our course, we use MLA format. Here are some examples of academic language, casual language, and slang. And we want to aim for using academic or formal language. In the next example, we want to avoid using expressions that stereotype genders. As an example, my husband is a firefighter. I refer to him as that rather than a fireman because, of course, many women are also now firefighters. And we always want to be inclusive and respect cultures. Here are some examples of outdated terms with better terms to use, some alternatives. And a little bit more about style. We want to avoid expressions that stereotype races, ethnic groups, or religious groups. And if you're ever in doubt about a term, please ask me and I can let you know if it's potentially a term that you should not be using and help you find a better term to use. That takes us to purpose. Purpose in writing refers to the reason an author writes a particular text. Some of the most common purposes in writing include to inform, which is to provide facts and information about a topic, to analyze, which is to examine methodically and in detail to explain and interpret a topic or idea, to persuade, which is to convince an audience to accept an opinion about a topic, to entertain, write, or amuse your audience, usually through the use of humor, propose, so to propose a plan or a suggestion to put forward for consideration, and to summarize, which is to write a brief statement of key or main points. Here are some questions to help you think about the purpose as you write something. First, what is the primary purpose of the writing task? For example, is this an assignment for a college course? Is it an application for a job? Depending on the purpose, you're going to write differently. What are your goals? What do you want your audience to do, think, or feel? And how will they use what you tell them? What does this writing task call on you personally to do? Do you have an assignment that specifies a specific genre or strategy? So we are writing different genres, that's different types of essays in this course. For example, an argumentative essay, you're going to argue your position. When we do an analysis, you're going to look deeply and examine something from a specific perspective, and so forth. And what are the best ways to achieve your purpose? Finally, this brings us to tone, and tone refers to the author's feelings or attitude about a subject. With an academic tone, we want to be objective or impartial. We don't want to show feelings for or against a topic. We're relying mostly on factual information, so we want to stay neutral in the words that we use when we write about a certain topic. As opposed to fiction and personal writing, which is often subjective and uses opinionated language with personal examples and personal opinions, and is often biased and informal. So again, with tone, it's really important to identify your audience and then to use an appropriate tone for that specific audience. A little bit more about an objective tone. An objective tone, again, uses impartial language, so it's not using anything that's personal or judgmental or emotive, which means to include your emotions about a topic. You want to use a clear and accurate presentation of facts, events, and ideas as they are, rather than providing your personal opinion or judgment about a topic. You want to present an argument based around evidence, which includes facts and supported ideas, and not personal views, feelings, intuition, or emotions. You want to work to avoid exaggeration and bias, and typically avoid using first person. I mentioned that earlier. I, me, my, and mine, except if the assignment specifically requires you to do so. And you want to show respect for the views of others and allow room for others to disagree. And you always want to avoid making 100% statements, and I just said always, which include things like, or words like all, never, and always, because it's rarely the case that you can say something is always one way or never one way. And something else to consider when we think about tone and the words we use is connotation versus denotation. Connotation refers to the literal dictionary definition of a word, so there's nothing else associated with the meaning of the word. As opposed to denotation, which refers to positive and negative emotions associated with specific words. As an example, I have sets of words over to the right of the screen. And in each set of words, one has a negative connotation while the other is more positive. So when you are writing, you want to choose your words carefully because individual words actually can convey emotions and can show your personal biases or opinions. So again, choose your words carefully, and in an academic setting, the tone should be as neutral as possible. This concludes this video. Mahalo. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions about anything that I covered in this video, please let me know.